Do, 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 do. Hey, ba-da-ba-ba. Ladies and gentlemen, KocoSports.com proudly presents 5 stars or better. That's right. Boom, boom here, along with the huge one, Dave Coco. We're on a mission here. We're going to review all the matches that professional wrestling journalist Dave Meltzer rated 5 stars or better. And Coco, today we're going to review a match from April 19th of 1986. It's the Crockett Cup. It's the match between the Fantastics and the Sheephearders. So, Coco, and I should also mention this is the first appearance of Jim Crockett Promotions on this list.
Yeah, and the Crockett Cup is something that was special. When I was very young, this is the type of wrestling we would watch. So I'm very excited, to get to see some of these, have some flashbacks here. Yeah, overall, I wish they brought the Crockett Cup back. I know, like, every now and then they flirt with it, but it
I,
was nice to
I
see.
think they did actually. The NWA did it not too long ago. I think they brought back the Crockett Cup with in NWA Power. I didn't watch the tournament, but I believe that did make a comeback.
That's all we got to get into. Once we start doing this again full time, we got to watch the new NWA if it's still even around.
Well, it's
What
still around, but the Rona has got everything in the world derailed right now.
Yeah, it's crazy how much it's changed. But let's look for better times. Yeah, I just liked it because you got to see the old NWA. You got to see the Sheephearders. For those that don't know, we used to do this on radio, and we interviewed one of the bushwhackers. I apologize, I forget which one it was, and it just felt. He basically, not even felt. He basically said the bushwhackers were embarrassing, and the Sheephearders is like his greatest memories in pro wrestling, and that's what he wants to be remembered as. And the funny thing is, with WWE and its marketing, they're going to be known as the Bushwhackers, but a lot of younger fans, including, I was right at the edge of this. Like, I remember the Sheepherders, but of course, I was like at an age where I was like, oh yeah, the Bushwhackers were the Sheepherders. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
you knew, but you forgot, at that age. It's like, what? It's a new guy. So yeah, the Sheepherders were amazing, and it was great to be able to see the Sheepherders, and what the man really loved. So yeah, it was great, and got to see some NWA stuff.
All right, Coco, I'm going to set the scene here for you first. Since I mentioned here, this is the first appearance of Jim Crockett Promotions, or JCP. Since this is the first appearance of the promotion, let me give you a little history on Jim Crockett Promotions. It was founded in 1931 by, of course, Jim Crockett Sr. He was a promoter. He did more than just professional wrestling. He also did concerts, plays, baseball, and hockey, primarily in North and South Carolina as well as Virginia. The promotion joined the NWA in 1952 under the name Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling. However, there were other several names like Wide World Wrestling, various names, but it was just pretty much just Jim Crockett Promotions. But um, he was a big Jim Crockett Sr. was a big fan of tag team wrestling, and then the senior passed away in 1973. His son, Jim Crockett Jr., took over and got George Scott as the booker. And they would kind of honor his father's wishes and focus on tag team wrestling. They would have a Wednesday night TV taping at WRAL in Raleigh, North Carolina, and that continued until 1981 when they moved the tapings to Charlotte at WPCQ. They started expanding regionally in 1978, and then went national in 1983. The name would eventually change to World Championship Wrestling for the TV. And there was a point where Vince McMahon bought the time slot on TBS, the Superstation. He bought the time slot for Georgia Championship Wrestling, and I mean that's going to be a different video, different story for a different day. Black Saturday. Several YouTubers have got videos on that. So if you and it's actually worth a watch. So I would check that out. But eventually, McMahon, it would fail. The fans ultimately rejected WWF because it was a completely different style of wrestling than what the fans down south liked. So it pretty much tanked. So Vince McMahon wound up selling the time slot to Jim Crockett Jr. for about $9 million, and so Jim Crockett Jr. would be elected. He was the president of the NWA, and he was reelected again in 1985. So anyway, he set up this tournament. It was an annual April tournament in honor of his father, Jim Crockett Sr., and it was for kayfabe, for $1 million and a big cup. So Crockett Cup and a big, and they did this one in 1986. They did it in one day, believe it or not, in the Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. They had two shows that day. They had an afternoon show and an evening show. The afternoon show drew about 3,500 fans. The evening show drew about 13,000 fans. It was a two-show 2014 tournament. It offered in I don't think it was aired on TV because the event was recorded and eventually released on VHS. Now, there's a flashback right there. Remember, kids, back before Blu-rays and DVDs, there was these things called VHS tapes. You had to
Boom,
rewind
boom.
them.
We're so old we don't even know how to mock young people. I
Exactly.
don't think they even know what Blu-rays are anymore. They're like, what? You just don't pay $9.99 and get everything sent to your eyeball? The thing is though, like, I just want to mention something that is funny about this situation is me and Boom Boom are like bizarro world. I grew up in the Northeast loving Southern wrestling, and he grew up in the South loving WWE. So, but yeah, I remember when Vince came to TBS, and I was fucking furious because I did not like the WWF product then and today. Now, I didn't like the WWE product then, now, or forever. Go ahead, Booms.
Yep. In this tournament, they featured, and since it was part of the NWA, it featured NWA affiliated promotions in their tag teams. You know, Jim Crockett Promotions, of course, All Japan, Central States Wrestling, the Continental Wrestling, the UWF, and Pacific Northwest Wrestling. And in case you're wondering what happened on this one, the Road Warriors would win this tournament. They would go on to beat Ron Garvin and Magnum TA to win. But let me set up here. This was a quarterfinal match here, and let's lay out the team. Now, the team, the Sheephearders. Now, people know them more commonly as the Bushwhackers in the WWF. Before them, it was Luke and Butch. It was Luke Williams and Butch Miller. They started out really as the Kiwis in 1966, and they did the Australian circuit. And then eventually they would go to Quebec and start touring parts of Canada in 1975. They would reunite in 1978 in New Zealand and become the Sheephearders. They did some work with All Japan in 1979 as well as in the Pacific Northwest, and also would go to Puerto Rico, particularly the World Wrestling Council in 1981. Now, in 1981, Butch left to go back to New Zealand, and Luke stayed behind and reformed, the Sheephearders with a guy by the name of Jonathan Boyd, and they toured TV. They were pretty much known as just like this brutal, just brawling tag team, and that would continue until Jonathan Boyd broke his leg. And then in 1983, Luke and Butch reunited, and this is actually kind of odd because they would go to the United States, but side note here, in Puerto Rico, Jonathan Boyd, along with Rick Morgan, would continue to do the Sheephearders gimmick in Puerto Rico. But anyway, Luke and Butch, they resurfaced in the UWF in 1986, and they actually feuded with the Fantastics. Now, who were the Fantastics? That's the tag team of...
Before you go to the Fantastics, I just want to add something. Nowadays, it's so common to see the best wrestler in England go to Japan, the best wrestler in Japan go to America, the best wrestler in Mexico. That happens. When the Sheephearders or, the Kiwis or the Bushwhackers, whatever you want to call them, did this was amazing. It wasn't easy to travel as it is today. So I just think the story of them coming from New Zealand and making it this far in the world of entertainment and professional wrestling is not as easy of a task it is today. Today, it seems like hey, I'm the American champion is going to Japan and vice versa. It's not as difficult. But back then, this was like impossible. These guys were.
Mhm.
I mean, that's why a lot of the Russians were from North Carolina. That's why a lot of the Japanese guys were from Hawaii. It's because traveling and getting jobs and becoming stars wasn't that common. And the average pro wrestling fan, the average TV viewer, didn't really fucking know the difference. I mean, the Sheephearders were from New Zealand. Got it. Nikolai Volkov was from Russia. It's like, got it. So, yeah, I just want to give a shout out, not a shout out, but like, I guess praise of how hard it was for these guys in their road to stardom.
All right. Well, and encountering them was the Fantastics. That was the tag team of Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers. Now, originally, the Fantastics weren't these two. It was actually Terry Taylor and Bobby Fulton in Memphis. But for whatever reason, it just didn't work out. So um, Terry Taylor was replaced with Tommy Rogers. So you had Fulton and Rogers together. Now this was done primarily. The Fabulous Ones was a big tag team around Memphis at the time, and they were trying to capitalize on that success or the name of the Fabulous Ones, so they created the Fantastics, and they got some attention, particularly with their feud with the Midnight Express. And these two teams going into this, it was a quarterfinal match here. Now, these two teams kind of had heat with each other in the eyes of the fans because the Fantastics had just run the Sheepherders out of Memphis, and they were feuding in the UWF. And to get to this point, the Sheepherders beat the tag team of Chavo and Hector Guerrero and the Rock and Roll Express. The Fantastics had beaten the Fabulous Ones and Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. So they line up here, and interesting little side note: the referee for this match was Tommy Gilbert. If that name doesn't sound familiar, probably not. You'd be more familiar with his sons, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert and Dangerous Doug Gilbert. But I digress. So, all right, Coco, you've seen the match. We got the link down here in the little doodly doo here. This was it was a pretty good crowd here, and just kind of, can you lay out the scene for us? These two teams kind of got the ring and were getting ready to square off.
Yeah, this is something that it caught me off guard right off the bat. Is just how much they cared about their countries. Nowadays, people are offended and they go crazy. It's kind of weird because I was talking about this with a Japanese friend and a couple friends from Europe. I travel the world. I work at an international school, so I'm very lucky to get views from outside of a bubble. And they all had something in common. They're like, it's amazing how much Americans don't like America anymore. And I see that because, like, I see the Bushwhackers that come out, they do the New Zealand stick, the Fantastics do the American stick, and people were going crazy. Nowadays, people would be like, I can't believe I'm so offended. And, like, there's reasons to be offended, but to root for your country in a sport or pro wrestling just seems silly. And it doesn't seem silly to a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans like, oh my God, if you root for a team, a tag team from the country they're from, it's insulting the other country. And it's like, not really. If you root for Team USA, you support everything America does. So I just found it weird that it felt out of place. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like they just came out, they started off.
It was just like kind of like a blasphemy. It was just like almost like out of place now.
Yeah, exactly.
But back then it was pretty common, especially in the deep South where I'm from.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, it's kind of uncommon, like with other countries. Like when I was sitting there, I had someone from Iceland, England, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, China, and we were just sitting there having a conversation. And sometimes, they ask you about your country, and they're like, why don't Americans like Americans anymore? And I was like, what do you mean? And it's like, you could like root for a tag team and chant USA and not agree with everything the politicians do. You could root for your country and it's not offensive to the other country. Like, I work with some amazing people from New Zealand, and I can't say enough. I'm not even kissing their butt being politically correct or anything. New Zealand people are awesome. Okay? They're some of the coolest people. I've been to over 30 countries. I've got to meet people. People from New Zealand are fucking awesome. Okay? I don't know if that's controversial. Kind of fucking lay it out there. They don't even understand it. They're like, what? Why? What? If you root for America, that's insulting me. How? So it felt really out of place, and I'm sad that it felt out of place. Because it would be different if they were like, oh, fucking New Zealand, blah, 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 blah. But they were just chanting USA. People were going crazy and
I
nuts.
mean, yeah, I mean, it was kind of strange because you would think, okay, what Dave's talking about is, you know, the Sheephearders come out there and they've got Jack Victory with them. Now, if that name sounds familiar with you, you might be an ECW fan. Jack Victory was like a journeyman. He did a lot of wrestling in the 80s and in the 90s. He went away from wrestling, but then he got talked into coming back to ECW back in the day. I have not seen him since. I think he maybe disappeared to the Indies or just retired altogether. But anyway, he was with them, and they were waving the New Zealand flag, and then the crowd's getting all worked up, and then you had the Fantastics come in, and Bobby Fulton leads the entire arena to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. That's what Coco's talking about. And it's like it was so spontaneous. It's like you would never see that shit today. You would never see that. I mean,
It,
it's
it,
just,
it was so silly and so amazing and so weird at the same time.
I know. Oh, I liked it, but it was just like, whoa, look at the kind of stuff you could used to do and get away with, and not everybody
Well,
bitch about
I
it.
don't know. Like, I can understand, like, if they were like pissing and shitting on a New Zealand flag and holding New Zealand people hostage. Then I'm like, whoa, this has gone too far. But I don't know. I find it weird that I found it weird. Does that make sense?
Yes, believe it or not, Coco, that actually makes sense to me.
Yeah. So, but from there, it was. I mean, do you want to hit it up and then I'll give my opinion, or do you want me to just what are you doing
Yeah,
here?
I'll just start out with the match here.
Okay.
So anyway, it's just a brawl. If you're looking for headlock, step over toe holds, this is not the match for you. This is just a fucking fight. It's just a fucking fight, and and eventually the Sheepherders they isolate Bobby Fulton early, and it just starts into a brawl. Fulton's trying to get the upper hand. He's going to makes the Sheepherders go to the outside to regroup. Tags in Tommy Rogers. Rogers starts winning. The Fantastics got the upper hand, but now then Butch um, Butch Miller gets the upper hand here, and he's fighting back and forth. It goes to the outside, and Fulton just fucking eats it early. We're talking within like the first 5 minutes of the match. He fucking just goes to the outside and fucking eats it. And they're brawling. The referee loses control. He's busted open. Rogers is asking the referee to disqualify the Herders for all this bullshit. The Herders are, get back in the ring. They start beating the hell out of them. Tommy Rogers is on the apron, rallying the crowd, trying to get behind him. The tag gets cut off. Fulton, he makes the tag, but the referee doesn't see it. So the referee's like, no, you didn't make the tag. And then the bad guys, the Sheepherders, take advantage to double team, Bobby Fulton in the corner, and eventually he hits the tag, and Rogers starts cleaning house. All 4 minutes start brawling, and it just goes. It's just an all-out brawl from there. It's just a fight. Uh, Butch uses the flag. Well, it was. I'm just going to call it for just this conversation. It's a flag pole. It was the pole that was used to hang the flag. I don't know. I think it might have been a piece of PVC pipe or wood or something. But they start using that. Basically, it's like a cane. They start beating the crap out of each other with. They start fighting over that. The referee eats it. He's get pushed to the outside. Another referee comes in. He starts talking it over with I think Tommy Gilbert on the outside. Everybody's fucking busted open by this point, and finally the referee's had enough. He's talked it over and he's called for the bell. And, the finally the herders get knocked out of the ring, and then Fulton, is like telling them, no, 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 come on, get back in here, and they have to get people to pull them apart, and they leave them apart, and then the Fantastic stand tall in the ring, and that was all for that segment. So, Coco, this was an absolute just knockdown, drag out brawl. So, I mean, just kind of your thoughts here. I mean, it broke down quickly.
Yeah. Overall, if you like brawling wrestling, it's pretty amazing. It has an out of control feel to it, which is a good thing. Yeah. Overall, I really enjoyed it. The thing that I noticed was no commentary, and it still told a story. There was no
Mm-hmm.
commentary. Listen, dear indie pro wrestling fans or dear indie wrestling promoters, no commentary is better than bad commentary. That is fucking science. Second off, do you notice back in the 80s or whatever, back in the day, the wrestlers bled more, but it still felt more important? And a lot of times people were like, when it was ECW, like, oh, man, it's too hardcore. Oh, man, you don't have to have blood every match. But now they barely have blood, but they also, no one gives a fuck. Like, they don't sell it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of weird that, back in the day, the wrestlers bled more and we cared more. So I find that to be kind of interesting. The brawl was pretty good, and I found out something. I remember when I was a little kid, chicks with mohawks. I was like, come on, who wants a chick with a mohawk? When the chick with the mohawk came down, I was like, I want a chick with a mohawk. Times have changed, boom, boom. Times have changed. But yeah, overall, great brawling. The thing is, this is such a great brawling match that I feel maybe at the time this was groundbreaking, but in the 90s, it was almost every big indie main event had this type of match. And I'm thinking in Florida, the new Heavenly Bodies versus the Shane Twins. Like, I seen this match a million times in IPW's and NWA Florida's feud. So I don't know if I've seen this style of match a bunch. Now, is it the Lost situation where, oh, I've seen this, but, it was the first time it was done here? Or was it just super exciting? I was surprised that there was no finish to 5 stars. But it's early on at 5 stars. I don't know if that matters. What do you think? To me, a 5-star match has to have a clean finish, or I think it's harder to get 5 stars or be a giant win or match of, you know what I mean? A top tier match without a clean finish.
Well, it
But
was different. I think it was different, and I'm not saying it. I don't think it has to have like this decisive finishes for it to be a 5-star match. Because if it's a good match, it's a good match. And I guess I guess what you're saying is maybe you can lose some kind of points or ratings
yeah,
or credibility, however you want to say it, if it just kind of falls flat at the end. It's like, okay, Okada Omega, they have like this big match, but at the very end they get double count out. And it's just like, okay, well, nobody fucking won. What the hell? It kind of
yeah.
leaves you hanging there. But I can understand what you're saying. But
And then also another thing I just want to add to it is that do you think because of weekly television, WCW and WWE, there being no, enhancement matches, and there's not a lot of clear winners, that maybe at this time this was special because it wasn't abused on weekly television? I mean, to
well,
me,
I think what made it unique for the time was typically your bad guys cheat, your bad guys brawl, and the good guys find a way to overcome. And this one, the good guys were like, okay, we've had enough. We're fed up with these guys, cheating, using weapons, busting my partner open. You know what? If you want to fight, we're gonna fight. And they just say to hell with it. They start fighting too. They go across, they go. It's not like this took place in a match, not like the concession stand brawl with the in Memphis with the Blonde Bombers, and God, I forgot who else was involved with that one. But that was not an official. That was not part of a match. Now, granted, it would be redone in the UWF. I know Sting, Doug Gilbert, no Eddie Gilbert would do that. There was a concession stand brawl that they brawled to like a set up like a little concession stand area. But this was kind of, I guess, maybe unique for the time. I guess I maybe can see why Meltzer rated it 5 stars, because it was definitely something unique, and everybody was the whole crowd was fucking eating it up. They were in it. They
Oh yeah,
weren't
that
on the
that
fence.
audience was hot. That
They
audience was
weren't they
definitely hot.
weren't thinking this was boring. I mean, they thought this was the most exciting thing ever. It was just complete total chaos. It was like watching a ballroom brawl. So like, it's like, okay, these guys are brawling. The cops are 5 minutes away. What can you do? Nothing. Just sit back and watch them brawl.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
but my
So
next. So do you think? Can you see why it got 5 stars?
I think I can see why it got 5 stars, but I don't think it can get 5 stars today.
Because that was going to be my next question.
Yeah,
Do you think it holds up? I think in today's, I mean, this would be like something that would happen on Dynamite on Wednesday. No, easy.
I don't think with the blood and the excitement, I don't think that would happen on Dynamite. Maybe, I don't know. It's hard. We haven't seen wrestling crowds in a while.
Yeah, I know. It was that forever.
Um, we might only be able to see wrestling from this moving forward. Me and Boo might only be able to see wrestling crowds in 5 stars or better. We might have to go back in time, be like, oh, remember when people were allowed to go to sporting events? Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think it was a great match for its time. Maybe it's the lost factor. Maybe it was groundbreaking for the time, but I don't think it holds up. I think at the time it was amazing. The crowd was into it. And yeah, I like that the fact that the version we watched, we'll put a link down in the doobly doo. The version we watched didn't have commentary. I think that helped with the atmosphere.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know. I liked it. Know what it is? I think this is a really good match for its time. And weekly television just beat this style of match to the ground. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I mean, today, I think if you do this exact same thing, not the same teams, but if you have like two current tag teams and whatever promotion do this today, I think it makes for an exciting segment, and I think it's kind of something that either starts a feud or content carries on a feud, but I don't think it would get like 5 stars today. So, well, and that caused disqualification. That double DQ. That the team that they were facing them got a bye, and like I said, the Road Warriors were going to win the tournament that year. As far as what happened with the Sheephearders, they later would go back to Puerto Rico. They'd also do visits to the CWF and the CWA. They would go on to sign with the World Wrestling Federation in 1988, and they were redubbed the Bushwhackers. And Luke and Butch were like, Vince McMahon was pitching the idea to make them family friendly and make them baby faces, and they're like, "Have you seen us? Have you seen what we do?" It's like these guys started a riot in Puerto Rico. Like they set it up where they had so much heat on them in Puerto Rico. They have I don't know if it was the same incident, but two different incidents. They had one where I think they had to brawl with another team to the back because they were worried that they were going to get stabbed if they, tried to walk to the back. So they had it set up to where, the bell would ring and they'd be fighting the other tag team. They'd be brawling back and forth, and then they would brawl back to the locker room so they could get there. They had one where the fans actually set fire to the door to get to the locker room to get into them, and they had to the promotion actually had to put them in cars and smuggle them out of the arena. Because I mean that's how much fucking heat they got, and they were like, "How the fuck are you gonna make us baby faces?" So that's when they came up with the arm gesture that they did. And so they would basically stay. They wrestled a little bit more of a comedic style. They would lick each other, do all this other stuff, and they would stay with the WWF until 1996, and then they would go back to the Indies, again Puerto Rico, and even they made like a I know they made at least a one-off appearance in ECW with the Dudleys. They would be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2015, and Luke and Butch would do a farewell tour in 2018 of New Zealand. So they got a little bit of a happy ending. Uh, as far as the Fantastics, they would continue to wrestle for the NWA and the AWA, as well as Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Tommy Rogers, actually, they would continue to wrestle as a tag team pretty much full time to 2007. Anyway, Tommy Rogers, he passed away in June of 2015 at the age of 54. His roommate found him in his house in Hawaii. The cause of death was not listed. Um, Bobby Fulton would kind of continue to wrestle for a little while. He did some matches and reunited with Terry Taylor to kind of did like the original Fantastics gimmick for a while. He wrestled his final match on May 26th of 2018, but only formally retired last year on July 16th of 2020. He would go on to have some health difficulties. He announced in December of 2019 that he had throat cancer, and then by June and later he would he had two more bouts here. First, he announced in January of 2021 that he had COVID-19. And then just as of this recording, it was actually a couple of days before I record this, on January 29th, 2021, he gave a health update. Looks like he's cancer-free. He's been recovering from throat cancer. He drank a full bottle of water by mouth. This is the first time he's ever been able to drink anything by mouth in a year. He said it took him 4 days, but it was an accomplishment, and his next goal now is to eat a meal by mouth. And he says he's hoping that sooner rather than later because he's a foodie. He loves to cook. So we certainly want to wish him a speedy recovery.
Yeah, definitely. And what a warrior battling for that, man. That's stuff that you don't even think about. It's amazing. Keep it up, brother.
So that is another chapter here in 5 stars or better. And Koco, you feel a little bit of deja vu because I can give you a preview of what we got coming up next. We've already done this match, but not really. Back when we're keeping this thing going here on a regular basis, we did Ric Flair versus Barry Windham, and that was on Valentine's Day of 1986. Well, these guys had a rematch almost a year later, but this time again with Jim Crockett Promotions and their Worldwide Wrestling show, and that's the match we're going to do next. It's going to be from January 20th of '87.
Oh, that's awesome! I can't wait because this is like when young Coco started watching pro wrestling. Pretty soon, it's I'm excited, so I can't wait. All right, me and Boom Booms, we are gonna keep working hard. We're doing 5 stars or better because our time is short, but we still want to make content, and I'm hoping to make more and more content coming up. We just don't want to give empty promises. So right now we're just trying to figure out times. But yeah, we miss you. We love you. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe, because when you're on YouTube and you stop making stuff, they're not going to send it to your subscribers. That's what we found out. Nothing is better than a longtime subscriber messaging me and be like, hey, what are your thoughts on Ibushi having 2 titles? And I'll be like, I actually made a video on that 5 days ago. What? I never got it in my inbox. YouTube. And also I'm on Twitch. All right, Boom Boom, I miss you. Love you. Internet Infantry, miss you. Love you. Booms, you have anything to say?
All right, take care of yourselves, guys.
Like, comment, subscribe. And with that, I am over. Hey, ba-dum, bum, bum, bum.